What a great pleasure for Mr. Osher and me, accompanied by Mr. Osher's dearest friends, Peter and Paula Lunder, to be here on this special occasion. Speaking from the vantage point of the foundation, the reputation of any foundation is measured by the accomplishments of its grantees. What you try as a foundation is to be a good, responsible, thoughtful, diligent investor in good institutions and good people doing great work. And this has been really, from the beginning, a remarkable relationship, going back to 2001 and David Eisenberg, who came to San Francisco to speak at the special event held by the first Osher Center, which was at the University of California, San Francisco. And then to move forward, not only with Harvard Medical School, but as David and Paul just mentioned, to move on to the Brigham and the wonderful clinical work that's been led by Dr. Levy with such distinction for so many years. Beginning with David Eisenberg, the center has benefited from wonderful, wonderful, very thoughtful, compassionate, intelligent leadership. And we salute David as the initial director. I was so pleased to see Dr. Julie Buring, because Julie is just one of those people when things need special attention from the wings, she comes, and with all grace and intelligence puts everything right. So it's just such an honor to have her with us today as interim director after David stepped down and Hélène came. And Hélène's coming. Mr. Osher, growing up in Maine, has always loved people with French-Canadian names, so Hélène Langevin was just beyond belief. And her creation of a center without walls has really been followed by a number of Osher centers who have really seen this as a wonderful step forward in embracing service to a larger community. And like all has been mentioned before, we too are so very proud that Hélène is now in this very distinctive position, formerly held by wonderful people like Josie Briggs and the founding director and Stephen Strauss. And now to go to Peter Wayne as director is a delight. Peter, at all of our meetings, takes people early in the morning on Tai Chi performances, which makes all of the Osher conferences really quite enjoyable. You know, from the beginning, when Dean Joseph Martin, who had been at UCSF, came to Harvard, the wonderful support of David Golan, Barbara Beer, this is just another very touching moment. You know, in a foundation, there are certain people that you work with very closely, and you just develop this relationship of respect, and I must say just true affection. And for Barbara to be here, it's wonderful. And then, of course, Paul, whom we finally had a chance to meet. We keep hearing about him, but we've never been able to meet him in person before. To Sally Andrews, who always kept the books aright, and just such a special, special, special person who we understand has moved to warmer climes, but the imprint, the legacy, and the assistance in holding everything together for so long was just magnificent, Sally. And then I can't conclude without mention of the late John DiMatteo, a dear, dear, dear friend of Bernard Osher from Maine, who came at many points as the center was being developed to work with Dr. Eisenberg, to work with Hélène, to work with Peter and Julie and Barbara and David Golan. It's just come full circle, and we're so proud of all of you. We at the Osher Foundation salute you, the many contributions that you've made to your patients over so many years, 2 decades, your contributions to the field, and your very special contributions to the Osher Collaborative, which is the brainchild and the dream come true of the one and only Bernard Osher, now with 8 wonderful centers in the United States and the 9th Center at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm. Mr. Osher, being a Mainer, doesn't like to say much, but he's going to reflect a little bit on his first meetings with David Eisenberg and the late magnificent Dr. Stephen Strauss, who started the Integrative Health Program at NIH, and being taken at such an early age in the prime of his life and career. The Oshers, as I know Ellen and many of you know, the Mr. and Mrs. Osher gave an endowment to the Foundation for NIH for an annual lecture in memory of Dr. Strauss. So, my dear friend and colleague and mentor, the one and only Bernard Osher. I think they've raised the mic. We have many different heights.
Different heights. I know about that. Good afternoon. Good morning, rather. It's almost afternoon. I'm delighted to be here in Boston. I grew up in Maine, and it was really a great deal to go from Bitterman, Maine to Boston. But my brother was a doctor here, and I came here many times, never thinking that I'd ever be interested in medicine at all. But over the years, I became quite accustomed to that and so on. When I was very younger, about 14 years old or 15 years old, we came to Boston on a trip from school, and I saw all the different sites here. And later, when I went to college in Maine, I used to come to Boston quite often and so on. And my brother was a doctor, and he was at the city hospital for his internship, and later he stayed there for many years. And so I used to be in Boston practically every weekend and so on. And that was very important in my life, and I was very much interested at that time. As a matter of fact, I slept in the hospital many times and so forth, rather than go to a hotel. So, of course, my brother never told them that I did that, but anyway, I didn't have to pay the hotel at all at that time, so it was quite interesting. But later in life, I moved to California, and somehow or other I got interested really in integrative medicine. And I think two people here that David Eisenberg and Dr. Strauss, who's no longer with us, I had lunch with them one time many years ago, and I became very interested in integrative medicine. And I didn't know what integrative medicine was, thank you very much, but I had a brother, who, Dr. Harold Osher, who's still living. He's 98 years old. He's Phi Beta Kappa, and very bright guy. And I mentioned to him integrative medicine. So he sat me down, and for a half hour, he told me what it was all about. And I got very interested in that at that point. And that's how what we have here in Boston came about. And so that was our first integrated center. It was here. And then later on, presently we have 8 integrated centers in America. We have one in Sweden. And that came about because my wife is Swedish, and she thought it'd be a very good idea for that. And so rather than get divorced, that's what happened. So I'm very proud of that. So consequently, and as I say, we have 8 now, and I predict in the future we'll have many more. But Boston is my favorite. I spent so much time here when I was single and so on, and it's a great city here, and great educational city, and I enjoyed it very much. So thank you very much.